Hey Dramatics, welcome back. So this series I'm actually going to call Tell It Back for my future recap, since there's no initial reactions post episodes because there's so much to study that it takes me some time to rewatch and analyze some scenes. And of course, don't blame me for that because the scenes are worth rewatching. So now we're going to get into episode 2 of When the Phone Rings, and oh boy, this episode is starting to build on even more plot twists with people and feelings. So let's dig into it because we have a lot to talk about and discuss. Also, spoilers again throughout all of this. So watch on if you've already seen this episode or if you still don't care. What I didn't mention before in the episode 1 recap is that Hong Ki-ju snagged the phone from the kidnapper after he had got knocked out. There was something Park Sun spoke of with one of his colleagues about it after he shows up at the house after the kidnapping incident took place when she's cooking dinner. She overhears that in order to remain untraceable, she has a 10-minute cap to talk to Park Sun. So while on the phone with him, she keeps time with her own phone timer to make sure she doesn't go over. So when we get to Park Sun, Bae is emotionally bothered. Upon seeing Hong Ki-ju trying to sneak away, the sigh of relief you see this man alleviating is everything, and it is a heavy one. Again, another clear sign that this man loves this woman with the breath of his being. But the receipts keep giving. Park Sun schools his features again as he comes near her, grabs her wrist, but upon hearing people coming down the stairs, he drags her into a storage room and asks her up front for the phone. Not her phone, but the phone. This makes her panic because she's still unsure if he had figured out that the caller was her, but she drags out her phone in order to respond to the questions he asked. So he starts quizzing her if the car and kidnapping incidents were true and at what time. She confirms. Then he asks if she was hurt. Before she can type out her response, he's already touching her, stroking his fingers through her hair, moving her hair back to inspect each side of her neck, untying the bow at her neck to look along her neck and collarbone. Upon seeing the band-aid covering her cut, he's demanding on how she got it. When she tells him that she wasn't able to identify her kidnapper, but confirms that the man had threatened her with a knife to off her, Bae is beside himself. Probably the most emotion she's seen from him since their marriage. Park Sun is wrangling with his control over his feelings, and he's probably feeling massively guilty that with all the safeguards he had put in place, that someone still got to his woman, and it makes this a highly intimate scene. The ambiance already sets the mood with a dark room, her against the door, and him quote-unquote undressing her a bit is very meticulous with some spicy overtones to it, especially with the deliberate slowness he unties the collar at her neck. With that pause. If you've seen it, you know what I mean, cause it's hot. Park Sun asks her with all of this, why didn't she tell him? Well, duh, genius, you told the kidnapper to call him back when she was quote-unquote dealt with. But I know he didn't know that she would hear that part, and he probably said it as a throwaway without thinking twice about it. He tells her to go to the hospital and he leaves, but not before calling his security to ensure she gets back home okay before calling his colleague. His colleague confirms that they couldn't trace the call, but Park Sun is determined to get the voice modulator removed so they can detect the real voice. When Hong Ki-ju gets home, she's listening to the conversation she had recorded between her and Park Sun. She's pondering at his reaction because she heard the thud on the other side of the phone of him hitting the wall and got confirmation with seeing his bloody fist. She wonders that maybe he got all butthurt at someone touching his things. Well, to all of that, yes ma'am, he doesn't want anyone touching any part of you, knife hands or otherwise, especially since he hasn't been able to do much touching of you himself for some reason or other. But on her side of it, it goes back to what I had said in the first recap, that she is starting to feel like she is more of a possession and not a person in this marriage. But now this sudden show of emotion is intriguing to her. And I'm sure she's wondering, where was all of this before? Sure, she wasn't who he originally wanted as far as she knows that she's not. But the minimum thing he could have done with her was try. try to be friendly, try to meet her halfway, not meet her with coldness as if everything was her fault, like this marriage taking place. Now, Park Sun has come home, coming into her room asking for the keys to her car. She has to make sure he doesn't dig into her purse since the kidnapper's phone is in there. She stashed it in there after she got through listening to the conversation. After he gets the keys, he goes out and inspects her car and sees that behind on the driver's side headrest is sliced through with the knife. Hong Hee-ju is wondering, why is he so keen on searching through her car when she has an oh crap moment? There's a dash cam in her car, a dash cam that can pick up the fact that she can talk. So she comes booking it out of the apartment to find him. Park Sun asks how she got it home. She tells him that it was brought home by a tow truck. And he wonders why aloud that the dash cam didn't record a thing, which she is so relieved that it doesn't, so now he cannot know that she can talk. About that moment, a motorcycle comes along a corner, flies around the corner a little too close to where Hong Hee-ju stands. Park Sun grabs her and swings her out the way with his sexy ringed hand at the small of her back. I just love the imagery of that, and I'm not the only one. The internet has shared that image over and over again. I loved it. So after getting her out the way and telling the motorcycle guy to be more careful, he tells Hong Hee-ju that he'll get her a new car and for her to stay at home and take it easy. She bites back that she has an assignment at court tomorrow and rebuffs any kind of security detail. Working has given her pleasure of late and probably her way to be free and having some normalcy in an otherwise restrictive marriage. So I don't blame her on wanting to fight back. She wants to have something normal and something of her own without him and his details hovering over her. She's like, I don't need a reminder that I'm married to you right now. Just let me be free and do my own thing. Then Park Sun has lunch with his mother, who is angry that he keeps looking at his phone whenever it rings because the kidnapper by now has had him in a chokehold of anxiety. His mother mentions how she's requested Hong Hee-ju to quit her job and that she especially has no idea why his wife bothers her so much and still believes that the marriage shouldn't have taken place anyway. Park Sun reasons that Hong Hee-ju was a good enough way to get closer to Chungwoo Daily News to clear out his father's scandals. And this happened with him marrying into the family. His father is currently running for president, so keeping everything tight and under wraps is crucial at this election time. So he essentially, in his own quiet way, in shutting down his mother, was like, what difference did it make which one or who he married as long as the scandals disappeared? But he also asked her who all knows the truth about his marriage, or really who all knows that is Hong Hee-ju that he's married to. His mother confirms that essentially it's immediate family. So as far as they know, no one else should know, which indicates the possibility that someone close is blackmailing him. So in the next scene, Hong Hee-ju's in court with his battered husband and brash wife, who she's doing sign language for. So after court is over and she is using the restroom, there's a scuffle between the married couple out in the hall. While Hong Hee-ju is in the bathroom, her security detail sees the commotion and goes to help, not realizing that someone is creepily coming down the hallway without us seeing him at first. You just see his legs and you see his shadow against the wall and of course along the floor. We do later get confirmation that it's someone that Hong Hee-ju knows. So in the whole shenanigans of it all, the security detail originally reported Hong Hee-ju's disappearance to Park Sun while he's in a meeting. Then they report that she's been found with a man who he's really curious about. They take a picture of the two of them and send it to him, and Bae is brimming with jealousy. I have noticed the amount of times that he sighs throughout this entire series. There's a couple of times that he has sighed during episode 1 when he comes home and discovers she's fine after the whole kidnapping incident and stuff. He sighs there in the background. I saw that. He sighs quite a few in this episode, and I think that's also like a deliberate acting choice. But I think with this character, because he has the weight of the world on his shoulders so much, and so he is dealing a lot, and it seemed like a lot has been going awry lately, especially regarding his own love life, which is also in turmoil because, of course, he cannot be with his wife in truth for some reason. So it seemed like he has a very heavy as the head aspect to him, that nothing is going right and that he has to carry a lot of weight, and it just seems like he's just being weighed down more than usual of late. So he is sighing his head off, but he especially sighs whenever it's regarding his wife. And I'm like, I don't know, I just need to probably just start like a sigh meter, a sigh or a scoff meter, because he's been doing that in spades this episode. I'm not sure if this is how Yoo Young-suk is just interpreting how Park Sun should act like that. I haven't seen any of his other acting roles, as far as I know I hadn't. So I'm not sure like how he acts outside of this, but I'm curious about if anybody can like document if he sighs in any other drama. But to me, like, this is a very, very necessary, I guess, trait for this particular character, for Park Sun for sure. So he gives a short sigh at seeing her in this picture, smiling genuinely at this mystery man, which I'm sure Park Sun hasn't at all experienced that smile for himself. He asked the detail not to send him any more pictures about him. And also, another side note, don't fangirl about another man who's with Park Sun's wife about how good his physique is. I'm like, y'all, stick to y'all's job description, please. And Bae couldn't handle it because he slammed his phone face down, interrupting the meeting for a bit. And I don't blame him. I'm pretty sure like he's feeling all kinds of ways already, and I'm not sure like how much of him being cold is his fault. I don't know that yet. I mean, a lot of the actions is still his fault, I think, in some capacity, but I don't know how much of the blame is his, what percentage of that is on the reason why he kept himself aloof from her. But on some capacity, I'm just like, if she was more secure in this marriage, you wouldn't have nothing to worry about. Nothing at all. So her college friend, Ji Sang-woo, knows how to sign, by the way. You can already tell the man is simping for her already, something awful. So Ji Sang-woo is going to start a new program at the station she works at covering cold case crimes. After she gives him her number, they part ways. But what isn't parting ways is Park Sun and his jealousy. And you can't tell me that it wasn't a pushing point for him doing this next part. Park Sun goes back through the side of the presentation he's sitting on because he missed quite a bit of the presentation while he's up there wondering who the heck is with my wife, that he realizes that there is a position for a sign language interpreter at the president's office, the same place where he works. Not slick. Because I love how he just came back and he immediately zeroed in on that. He's like, what's this? Okay. So Hong Hee-ju gets home pretty much as soon as she gets in. Here comes her mom calling and says, like, I'm here and I'm here to give you some stuff. You need to get your body right and snatch. You need to go ahead and get that clinic thing going. Like, you need to go ahead and get some baby making things going on. Here's a set of lingerie for you. So again, her mom is pushing her, wanting her to fulfill that marriage, to make sure that, you know, pretty much Park Sun is a good and happy man. But it's like, if you only knew, and I'm not sure if her mom has ever hung out with him, you know, and see their dynamics together, but I'm sure she's also putting a lot of the blame or the feelings on the marriage on Hong Hee-ju. That's usually always how it happens in a lot of dramas. Like, no matter what happens, it's always her fault. It's always the female lead's fault for some reason or other. Always the scapegoat, always the one to blame. It doesn't matter that technically Park Sun has been pushing her away. I'm sure her mom was spinning in such a way. It was like, well, what did you do to make him do that? So with her pushing Hong Hee-ju to, you know, go ahead and get them babies, you know, secure her wifely duty with her husband, she threatens Hong Hee-ju that she will throw out her ailing dad out of his nursing home if pretty much their marriage quality does not improve. So Hong Hee-ju is like, okay, bet. So she dresses in the lingerie not to seduce her husband, but to trick her way out of this marriage, pun intended, considering that she had asked her mom, like, Like, pretty much what are you trying to do? You're practically pimping me out in order to get this marriage, like, on and popping. So that's where that comes from. Yeah, her mom is something else. And I'm not sure if, any kind of feelings or whatever between her and her father. Sometimes, like, since you're immediately here and I'm still mad at your father, I'm going to take it out on you. And she's just like, I just want to live a happy life away from BS, away from intrigue, away from neglect. I just want to be myself with a puppy and my rice cooker. That's all I want right now. So when 2200 hours or 10 o'clock p.m. rolls around, Hong Hee-joo calls her husband on the kidnapper's phone. Bok-sun is bolstered a bit from some of the advice he had received from his mother about negotiations and building trust and rapport, and also not to jump at answering the call immediately. Wait them out. So when he finally picks up, Hong Hee-joo asks if he was going to do what she had originally asked him the night before by giving up his marriage. Bok-sun counters with asking how the kidnapper knew it was Hong Hee-joo when everyone else in the country suspects he's married to her sister, and that the person doing this, as I mentioned before, has to be close to him, and how close he is to this truth. But the person is far from who he suspects. So since he's still seething about the ordeal Hong Hee-joo had went through, Bok-sun is still bent on zero compromises in taking the kidnapper down. Hong Hee-joo counters his promise with sending him a picture of her thigh with a distinct mole on it. Of course, Bok-sun has never seen her bare thigh like this, so we can't even vet if it's from her or not. If they were married in truth, he would have seen it and probably worshipped it, knowing the simp I assume he really wants to be with her, but I digress. So she gets him there, but Bok-sun pivots, asking the kidnapper if they're married. Hong Hee-joo stumbles with the question, saying yes before backpedaling with a no. Either way, Bok-sun alights her fear, saying that he'll add another crime to the kidnapper's charges for using an obscene fake picture and using media to send it. He claims that he knows his wife better than anyone. We all know that's a lie because Hong-doo has no idea who he's speaking to right now. Well, Hong Hee-joo dares him to check his wife's thigh to verify it for himself before hanging up, and realizing what she compelled him to do. So, a brief pause on this recap though, and this with a lot of bit of a face palm. What am I talking about? Because I don't know if this will have consequences later, but the way I scrimped at Hong Hee-joo for using the kidnapper's phone to take many pictures of her in lingerie, and I'm like, sis, the man hacked into your car to control it, has a phone modded out with a special modulator and a VPN, and is only tapped to call your husband. You don't think he doesn't have some kind of cloud backup or something to where he could still somehow get access to his phone remotely, pictures included? Not to mention, you're using this phone to blackmail your husband. The kidnapper probably has been recording y'all's conversations on the back end. If I was crazy with a giant chip on my shoulder like this dude seems to be, I wouldn't put it past him. I mean, nothing can come out of this, but this was a real what the F moment for me. I really wish she would have used her brain for this. In the whole scheme of this, I get what she's trying to do, and I get that this is desperation at work of trying to get out of this marriage, even if her blackmailing Bok-sun into dissolving their marriage isn't going her way. Plus, her working as an interpreter means a lot to her, I'm sure, because it means that she's not imprisoned in their house, and that also she's been trying to do this to earn enough funds to get out of Dodge, but it's slow going. Doing things this way will accelerate things for her, but I feel like this will have consequences later on, both from the kidnapper and from Bok-sun. The kidnapper may use this as leverage, but Bok-sun may also assume that his wife was colluding with the kidnapper this entire time. Either this way or not is going to be hella messy. Since she was on the phone with him longer than usual, his crew was able to narrow down the area of where the call came from. After realizing Park Sun couldn't let anyone go digging on the veracity of the thigh picture, he decides to go home for some field research himself. And Boo is on a mission, flinging his jacket upon the couch before immediately making his way to her room. But Hong Hee-ju, who has regretted letting her mouth fly off the handle, heard him come. When he tugs on the blankets, Hong Hee-ju refuses to relinquish her hold. One hard jerk causes him to stumble to where he's braced above her, and they stare at each other for a long while before he backs off. And yeah, that scene is given. You see that also a lot in promos and stuff, in music videos too. Instead of looking at her thigh, Park Sun instead tells her that there's an opening for an interpreter at the president's office and that she should apply for it. Then we get a flashback of 3 years ago. He comes in late after she cooks him dinner and she's falling asleep at the table. After some liquid courage, she dances with him, which he goes along with. But poor baby is falling asleep on her feet. After it seems like he's about to kiss her, Park Sun tells her not to bother trying to do something her mom has practically spoon-fed her to do, and try not to have feelings for him, period. And it seems like she genuinely wanted to have feelings for him though. After all, she was trapped in this marriage but wanted to try and make the best of it. But after all her rebuffed attempts, and also now with the kidnapper's issue at bay about him seemingly not caring if she lived or not, that sealed the deal for her. And she's ready to get out of here by any means necessary. We see a glimmer again from Park Sun. That little smile that he gets at her falling asleep at the table while waiting for him is a clear indication again of a man who loves his wife, but something or someone is preventing him from giving all of himself to her. And I'm so curious about why and who that is. Is it because he didn't want fake feelings from her because her mother was forcing her to? Or perhaps something else is in play? I'm so curious to how this will eventually unfold, that he has to keep her at arm's length when it seems as if he doesn't want to, and that his feelings are already been long established before this. So the next morning, Hong Hee-ju comes out of her room, only to discover that her husband is still home, far past his usual leaving time. I think it's like, 8 or 9, and he's up there watching TV, and she's up there looking her grumpy best. And so she up there double chasing, seeing him sitting on the couch. He says essentially it's like, I never skip breakfast. And so she's thinking like, okay, so he wants me to cook breakfast. So he goes into the kitchen with her, but he ends up cooking her a nice suitable breakfast. He doesn't eat himself, but he requests for her to eat all of that. And she's so shocked that he's like, oh, I guess you did all of this for me. So a little brief of a side quest here. And this is going to be a brief mention because of how this has happened. So the news anchor who is fangirling so hard over Park Sun, Na Yuri, and Hong Hee-ju's college friend Ji Sung-woo, they have a little meet cute when Homegirl decided it was a bright idea to walk straight through a throng of Ultra fans. And I'm just sitting here like, girl, I saw daylight and the path furthest away from the street instead of going straight into the fray, but whatever. But they exchange cards and coffee and stuff, and then they essentially talk about their crushes. And it's already clear that they are both crushing on the main leads. But the way they meet up here, it gives way to the possibility of them possibly being involved with each other, especially since now they'll be working at the same news station. So Hong Hee-ju goes to visit her father, and her dad looks to have dementia or something along those lines. She wheels him out for fresh air, and her dad mistakes her from her mother. She learns that her father sent her away from him to give her a better opportunity to become a news anchor like she's always wanted to, instead of ending up like a failure like him, because he did nightclubs and all that stuff, and he didn't want anything like that for her. Hong Hee-ju starts sobbing, and we learn that her actual name is Na Hee-ju. So what I'm assuming here is that when her mother married this news conglomerate dude, Hee-ju was raised as a Hong to give her better opportunities. But this life has been nothing but hell on her since she's been pretending to be mute. Yes, pretending to be mute all this time. And she's never been able to measure up to her sister Hong Yi-na, whom I'm assuming is her older stepsister. Now that she's in this prison of a marriage, she's miserable. And it also indicates that she just wants a life that's hers and the freedom to choose what she does with it. Because it seems like most of her life's decisions has been decided by someone else. You know, her father sent her away so that she can become a news anchor like she's always dreamt about. Her mother, I'm sure, was raising and cultivated her to be practically whatever she wanted. Pretty much like a marriage tool. She was going to, I'm sure, like also just market her to be a means of progressing her own business or her stepfather's business, or put in replacement and married to this man who, as far as she, like I said, has assumed, does not have any kind of like feelings for her. And so she eventually hasn't really been able to have any real choice of what she can do. I'm pretty sure like the only choices she probably had was what she probably went to school for, and also her current job choices. I'm sure those are the only other couple of choices she's ever had in her life. Everything major past that has been up to everyone else. Also, it seems that Na Yuri and Na Hee-ju are related in some way. That can't be a coincidence. They seem like they're familiar, but I guess just as in like friend, like they're friendly or like coworker like at the station. It's like I'm not sure if Na Yuri is familiar or knows about Hong Hee-ju in any kind of way. I mean, she probably didn't know her being raised as a like her last name is actually Na, so I don't know. So, but yeah, having those two last names is not a coincidence. We're going to find out about it for sure. We are. So Park Sun had gotten some results back from his team. The encoder voice still hasn't been cracked since it's encrypted extremely well, and also gets verification that Hong Hee-ju's dashcam has been off this entire time, but they did get CCTV footage of her car being stopped at the intersection and the kidnapper getting in. This and the meeting Park Sun has with the reporter he had talked to about tracing the phone number in the last episode. So he talks over with this reporter regarding the picture of Hong Hee-ju's thigh. And both incidents of him talking with his colleague and with this reporter is indicating the high probability of her having an affair. So when the 2200 hour or 10 o'clock hour rolls around and she calls, Park Sun is already a little perturbed. Okay, quite a bit. He's already been perturbed, and now we're getting into like middle ground of just wanting to rip this guy limb from limb. You can just tell. It's like if you were in front of my face, I can't even promise you'll be making this out alive at all. So when the phone rings, he waits to the absolute last minute to pick it up, only to hang up. So Hong Hee-ju calls again, daring him not to hang up again, which Park Sun sees as the kidnapper being highly desperate. He's taken another lesson that his mom had told him by making her wait 5 minutes before she calls him back. So Hong Hee-ju is acting as if she's waiting for half an hour instead of 5 measly minutes. And I mean, she had called him back immediately and was immediately getting his voicemail. So she decides to go to a convenience store to drink a bottle of water. And, you know, she's pacing back and forth. But all she did this was in the span of like 2 or 3 minutes. And so immediately, as soon as it turns like 10:05 or 22:05, she calls him back. And she imagines him sitting in the seat beside her. And so he says it's good that she waited like a good dog, and that for her obedience he might, quote unquote, throw her a bone. Of course, he doesn't know that he's talking to his wife, but of course, like, you cannot dismiss the fact that there was a deliberate choice of putting him, even imaginary, in the seat beside her. And of course, her grabbing a hold of his shirt and like having him come forward as he's saying these lines to her. I mean, the language here has huge domineering qualities, especially, as I said, with him, quote unquote, being in the car with her. So it also gives some subtle sexual tones, but it also will depend on what your perception is of sexy or not. And then she hears this deafening boom. The call is gone, and she tries to call Park Sun back, but she only gets a voice message. So instead of questioning, what was that? What happened? Why isn't my husband picking up? She decides to go home. Honestly, if it was me, I would have driven by his office. It would not have mattered if we were not on good terms or not. I'm like, I just want to make sure, I'm like, is he dead? Is there something we need to worry about? Like, as far as I know, like, is my life over? And I'm sure she also does not want death upon her husband, because I honestly believe there are some feelings in there involved with her, that she wants nothing the best for him, but just far away from her. You know, you can live your life over there, just let me be free to do whatever I need to. I'm sure that is exactly what would happen, but I personally would have driven past the building to make sure that everything is fine, because I'm like, that wasn't coincidence. She heard that, and like, that took her out for a minute to where her ears were ringing, and so I'm like, that sounded like a bomb. Maybe I need to go and check on my husband. But if she had done that, we might not have gotten the end scene that we had. So upon her going home, she does go from room to room to check and see if he has made it home. He has not yet. After falling asleep on the couch, she wakes up to turn on the news. There was a fire at 10:07, the exact moment she tried calling him back the first time after the bomb, that boom had happened. And this fire took place at Paxson's office, where a figure in black comes in with this pizza-like box that gives off smoke and fire. But it seems like eventually something had dominated, because there is just stuff and shrapnel everywhere. People are injured. The news has already spun the story that is already indicating and revealing that there is this kidnapper that's been pretty much calling him and harassing Paxson, you know, and also that he's most likely been doing all these calls. And the thing about this, they have the voice recording of the kidnapper asking Paxson for 2 billion won and threatened him with his wife's life. It was then she realized that they had recorded her conversation that she had with him on the night of the embassy party. And now her modulated voice threatening her husband is now broadcasted to the entire nation. And now it's tying her to this crime that happened at his office. If they find out it's her, it's over for her by every single means. But with all of that, her husband comes walking in. He walks by before he, in passing, spots her, and he stops. He looks back at her, and baby has blood and soot all over his shirt, and there looks like there's some dry blood behind one of his ears, so it might indicate that he had gotten a head injury when all that stuff had exploded. But he says nothing, and so he comes up to her and he backs her up to the dining room table before he puts his hands around her waist to hoist her up and getting all up in her face. And y'all, the amounts of gasps and noises I made were so unladylike when I first watched this, and I won't even go any deeper than that. I believe like someone had posted in one of the shorts on YouTube about like how their toes curled. Exactly that. Oh, it's if you like that sort of thing, or like that kind of like sensual tension, that does it. Oh, I've watched that scene more times than I care to admit. For research, y'all. It's all for research. So Paxson tells her how nothing of late has made any sense, that there can't be a Hung Hee-jun he doesn't know. Yes, sir, there is. You have no idea. He's gonna be in such a rude awakening in the future. He don't even know, baby, don't even know. But he also says that he has to verify which version of her is real, and that she's his only lead, before snagging a fistful of her skirt and pulling it up. But she stops him midway. And y'all, this scene has been replaying in my head like for the last week since I had watched it. And I don't know about y'all, the veins in his arm is so yummy as he's up there straining like to keep his hand still. It's so delightful. Like, yeah, okay. So I'm sorry. The man is so handsome. He is. It's like I am just. Yoo Young-suk, he is so handsome. I'm sorry. And like all the accolades and the like thirst videos and comments that he's getting, I'm so happy on his behalf. Like, it's well deserved, and I get it. He does bring like a cool sexy to his part here. So yeah, completely 100% earned in every single way. So he asks, this other line that's like been living in my head, he asked her, are you going to take it off or should I, indicating her skirt so he can see that mole. I'm like, I would definitely like him to do that, but in a better context when she's not like scared out of her mind, because she's already fearing that she is going to be found out, especially since a lot, like pretty much she's tied to all of this. She's tied to the possibility of offing her husband and a lot of his co-workers. Someone could have died that night and now her voice is tied to this. And so she doesn't know when the shoe's going to drop, when he's going to find out, especially since he has the technology to do that. And I'm surprised she didn't think that far. Again, desperation. I get it. She just saw a window and she's trying to wiggle her way through it, even though the hole is small and she can barely even get her hand through it, but she's trying. But I'm like, you didn't think that your husband works for the office of the president and that they have all kinds of technology that could trace you, not to mention the kidnapper. Like, you didn't think that there's two parties here that you are not literally equipped to battle either or. But you know, it is what it is. It wouldn't be this drama or really this web novel without it. So there you go. So Park Sun has already been building up to this point, to where pretty much he's about to pop. That leading up to that crucial point of when that fire started, or when the bomb of his life literally went off, just like it seems like he's about to, that leading him towards the dark possibility that his wife might be cheating on him and that this masked man was trying to kill him over her. And so now he has to find out if she has that mole, which might indicate that she got some connection to this man. So before the end of the episode, we do get a flashback. 3 years ago, Park Sun had been in a text conversation with Hong Ina the day before they were to get married. She's threatening him with his family secrets to pretty much like cancel their nuptials. The first thing he texts, the first thing he asks about is if Hong Hee-ju was going to marry the son of some construction company. And Ina reveals, like, yeah, it's true that practically Hong Hee-ju's mother will package and sell her daughter off to anyone that had the highest bid. So pretty much just considers her daughter as marriage property, if nothing else. And I think she would consider both daughters that way, but it goes to show that they're willing to sell off any of their daughters to secure anything, like, you know, political wise. And of course, like with this, he sighs again. Like I said, he sighs so much throughout the series. I know like there's like 3 or 4 major sighs throughout all of this, but he's already just beside himself. And so he tells Hong Ina that the wedding will take place tomorrow, but instead of it being her as the bride, it'll be Hong Hee-ju instead. And there it is, the confirmation of so many things that Park Sun has wanted Hong Hee-ju for a long while, had feelings for her all this time. He wanted to protect her from marrying someone unworthy of her, all the while he was keeping her at arm's length their entire marriage. And there has to be a reason. Him protecting her from his quote-unquote enemies isn't a good enough excuse, at least it's not for me. But this man told Hong Hee-ju that she was nothing but a stand-in, that she wasn't a part of his plan, when it's evident she was who he wanted all this time. He literally plotted and planned to switch her out with her sister to secure 2 desires: to marry into this news conglomerate family so that his dad's can be swept underneath the rug, and that he could also be tied to her, because it seems that he already had feelings for her from the get-go. But what sucks is that her mom, and probably his as well, seem to blame her for stealing Ina's man away, when Hong Hee-ju probably had no idea whatsoever that Park Sun was checking for her like that. I'm like, she was just pretty much like, I was just breathing, and then all of a sudden I'm married and here we are. So I can't wait to see what happens on how all that develops. What was the first meeting of them, of him seeing her and vice versa, and what spurred such feelings in him, and why he's had to stay aloof from her. I can't wait to find that out. I can't wait to get into the third episode to resume the scene. There was so much more touching in this scene too. A little bit more skinship. Like getting a lot more touching, and it's probably been the most they've ever touched each other in their entire marriage. Not to mention of them talking on the phone or them talking period. So for Hong Hee-jun, I'm sure it seems like it's been freeing to be able to talk to him, even if it's not through normal circumstances. But she's never ever had to talk to him, I am assuming, with her own voice. So this voice modulator is acting as a shield for her, but she hasn't been able to be her full self either. So I think it'll be great to see her metamorphosis the further we go along, especially after he finds out, and where they can start being more coupley. And I've seen thumbnails and stuff like that trying to avoid those like the plague, but I've seen them to where they are getting into more couple energy, and I'm really, really excited to get to those episodes. So I am so sorry for running longer than I intended, but everything in this drama is like a thread, and the more you pull, the more you unravel. So please comment below about what you thought about this episode in particular. No spoilers for upcoming episodes if you can, but if you have to sound off, go off with it, queen. Go ahead and do what you gotta do. So please like and subscribe. Stay well. I love to get y'all's impressions of these first 2 episodes of When the Phone Rings. I've given you mine, but hey, it's just a thought.